My father was an historian, a writer, a teacher, a scholar, a community organizer, and especially an encourager. For most of his life, he taught in post-secondary settings, but he considered himself an educator, and he was happy when he could share his knowledge and his experience with people of any age, and when he could help his students see that they often had the wisdom and capacity to answer their own questions and resolve the problems facing their communities. My dad, Vincent Harding, and my mom, Rosemarie Freeney Harding, were activists in the Southern Freedom Movement. In Atlanta, in the early 1960s, they co-founded a pioneering center for interracial social service work and hospitality called Mennonite House, which was a base for dialogue and action in the civil rights period. Over the course of his life, my dad was always looking for ways to connect the history and the spirit of the African American struggle to the experiences of other folks who have also been through challenges in this country and who have so much wisdom to share. Chicanos, Native Americans, Asian Americans, working class people of all races, immigrants from all over the world, gays and lesbians, elders and children, in other words, all of us. My dad had a tremendous love for this country and its potential as a multiracial democracy. But he was a scholar, so he was not naive about the deep pains and injustices in our nation's history and in our present moment. But he had so much hope for us. He and my mom both really loved this country in all of its raggedness and all of its beauty, and they tried to remind everybody they could get their hands on that we are capable of making this nation so much better, more just, more creative and productive, more welcoming and more responsive to all of our citizens. They believed that. And the work of the Veterans of Hope Project, the oral history and community building initiative my dad and mom started in 1997 at the Iliff School of Theology, is an example of the difference my father made in the Denver community. For over 15 years, the project interviewed elders from a variety of U.S. and global social justice movements, sponsored public lectures on themes related to the connections between religion or spirituality and social change, developed intergenerational leadership programs, organized international exchange tours, and created an educational DVD series with study guides featuring autobiographical conversations with some of the elders, the veterans of the Veterans of Hope Project. I have been really fortunate to work with my dad, my mom, and a wide network of other family members and friends for 20 years of my adult life. And I'd say that two things in my dad's legacy are particularly inspiring to me. One is his scholarship. My dad was an immensely creative and deeply reflective historian who studied the role of religion as a resource for social change in many different contexts, especially in the history of people of African descent in the Americas. I'm very proud of my dad's accomplishments in this realm, and they inspire me in my own work. The other element of my dad's legacy that is especially significant to me is his strength as a writer. He was writing until his last days. I first knew my daddy as a writer, with green and black ink stains in the corners of his shirt pockets from the refillable cartridge fountain pens that he loved. Writing for Daddy was both a passion and a commitment. He used his words and the wisdom inside those words to encourage people to work for a better society. Writing and reading is a love I share with my dad and something that I hope will remain with me until I die. I think my dad's legacy is first as a teacher, as someone who really loved young people, and old people too, and everybody in between, and wanted to always encourage them to believe in themselves and their capacities. He believed in the country, this country, not as an imperial power mandating its will to other nations, but as a place which out of its own profound struggles, its own hard-won creativity, has some wisdom to share about what to do and what not to do to be a successful, multicultural, multiracial, multilingual democracy in the 21st century world.
The Rocky Mountain Indian Chamber of Commerce provides business and professional development training, networking opportunities, scholarships, and financial assistance to move commerce that benefits American Indian communities. We strive to enhance Native American businesses in their path to growth, empower Native American professionals and entrepreneurs in their path to success, encourage Native American students in their path to continued education, engage tribes in their path of economic development, and really embrace our non-Native partners in their path to reach the Native American community. Our task at hand is to show corporate America and the global market at large that American Indian commerce is a viable business investment. The type of work that I do certainly isn't glamorous. There are a lot of long hours. It can be emotionally draining and a lot of personal sacrifice. So when I need to refill my well of inspiration, I listen to Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror. I am reminded that if I'm going to make a change, a real change, it starts today and it starts right now in Michante. As a member of the Oglala Lakota Nation, it's important for me to help my community to stay relevant to what's new in business right now, but maintain our respect for our cultures and traditions. As a mother, it's equally important for me to show my daughter the beauty and pride in being American Indian. I want my nieces and nephews and my daughter to really see that we're a beautiful, vibrant people full of resilience and perseverance. Wachintangha. I want them to see it, to learn it, and truly know it. Legacy. Those are big shoes to fill. But in some humble way, I hope that I'm able to bring some unity amongst our community, to give a clear voice to our people. Our people have suffered a great deal, and there's still so much work to do in Indian country. But we can't get there if we don't work together. My people say Tiyoshpayeng, which means this is family. Once we truly grasp that concept of mitakoyeo yasin, meaning we're all related and it's all connected, then we can work together and show the world that in the face of centuries of severe adversity and struggle, American Indians are still here, thriving and growing. So to the community that nominated me for this honor, how mitakoyampi pilamiya, thank you, and pilamiya tunkashala, thank you, Creator.
I was born in Vietnam and came to the United States when I was 17 years old. I have been in Denver area since I was 18. I played for Team DPS. I've been with the district for 27 years and the DPS school principal for 20 years. It has been my great pleasure to work with my students, families, and community members from many different and diverse populations. As a second language learner, I believe I am in a perfect position to advocate for the needs of my students who might have additional challenges due to language, culture, and background. I am able to empathize with students in a way that native language speaking staff might not be able to do so. I ensure that ALICE is proactive in nominating all students for all backgrounds for as many awards and recognitions as possible. And we make a point to attend award ceremony to support those being recognized. If there's a fee for tickets, the school will pay for, not a staff member, but so I am more able to encourage staff attendance. I try to ensure that all students feel important, valued, smart, and successful. Many parents, especially second language learners, are hesitant to come to their child's school. At ALICE, we host a variety of evening events to draw families and community members in and help them feel welcome. Throughout the years, we will have English language acquisition meetings, science and on math nights, art events, music and drama performances, and drum roll expeditions. Each year we have an international celebration classes. We study the history, cultures, and the language of the country. We accumulate the study by devoting a day in celebration of those countries. All families are welcome to attend, and they do. Students will come to school in costume and we will have food and activities from each of the countries. Performers are brought in from presentation from their countries, including dance, music, and school telling. Some years the celebration continues into the evening, such as the Libya night. Couple years passed. Alice had a free and reduced learn percentage of 94%, which strive to create a level playing field for all students by supplying free backpacks and school supply during registration and winter coats, hats and mittens when the cold weather hits. On staff, we employ ESL resource teachers, literacy and math interventionists, school social workers, school psychologists, and school nurses to help address any additional needs of our students may encounter. Alice has partnered with the University of Hill Optimist Club to provide additional support in reading. Our Optimist Club also promotes our super citizenship program, which encourages our students to become a super student and super citizenship. As a second language learner, I have a unique perspective to offer, and I believe that I have enhanced my past and current students socially, emotionally, and educationally, and help them equip them for a successful and happy life.
I'm glad to say that I had an opportunity to come to Colorado in 1974 with the American Federation of Government Employees. That was my first introduction to the state and Denver. I was here representing some 40,000 active federal employees, and later on I became a member of the National Association of Retired Federal Employees, of which there's some 40,000 plus receiving retirement benefits coming into the state of Colorado. I represent that group here and nationally. In 1992, I was elected as the national president of NARFE, N-A-R-F-E. And when I returned in 1995, at the end of my term, I found that the only state in the nation with voluntary reporting was Colorado. And I was very disappointed in that because there was 45 states that had mandatory reporting, one state with voluntary, Colorado, and 4 states with nothing. So I was concerned because my grandson, who was born disabled from cerebral palsy, would never be able to walk or talk. And at the age of 18, he would be subject to lose the benefits he had under a mandatory reporting. The doctor said he wouldn't live past the age of 8. In November this year, he would be 29 years old. So I'm glad I took this undertaking. It was very big concern to me that nobody really was pushing this issue. Senator Dottie Wam introduced the first legislation in 1991, and she was unable to get mandatory reporting and settle for voluntary reporting. It wasn't until 1958 when Senator Mike Feely agreed to introduce the bill, and all it required was 3 words to make it mandatory. But it got caught up in the political process and was killed. The bill was carried by several senators and House of Representative members over the years. One of the last being Suzanne Williams, who was carrying the bill, and her term limit came up, and I thought this is the end. But Senator Eva Hudak took up the mantle, and she introduced a bill. In 2013, it didn't pass. We ended up getting a bill. We amended the bill to make it a study. The study was adopted, put it into effect, and as a result, in 2014, we had a law come out. It was passed and signed in law by the governor. I'd like to also recognize the contributions that Representative Sue Schaefer made to this, and all the other legislators that got behind us, including the Attorney General's office, who've done a terrific job. Mandatory reporting will give seniors and disabled persons the same protection that children receive. I couldn't understand why there would be a difference, but funding was the main issue. We got that also accomplished through Governor Hickenlooper's office. The importance of this is that as senior population and disability population grows, more and more opportunities for people to pry on these at-risk adult persons. we need to get support out there in the state of Colorado to have people understand how serious a problem this is and how devastating it is to a senior or disabled person to lose their financial support, to be raped, to be bullied, and live in fear. In this great country, that should never happen. So I'm glad that the state legislative assembly had the courage to go ahead and pass this mandatory reporting over the objections of some, but not over the needy. They come through for the seniors and the disabled. And I'm looking forward to seeing this bill reduce the number of victims that were in the past that suffer from abuse from outside sources. I was asked the question, what would I like to be remembered as? Well, I like to be remembered as a people person with a sense of humor. I think humor is something we all should try to keep in our life. I stand for doing the right thing for mankind. There's too much tragedy in this world today, and people are made victims unnecessarily. And sometimes it's hard to tell what brings about this. But if we do right by everyone, and if we treat everyone equally and treat them right, there's no question in my mind that this world will be a better place for all to live in harmony, peace. And these things are what I want to stand for and be remembered for in my lifetime. Thank you very much.
By way of background, I grew up in an integrated section of Coney Island in Brooklyn, New York, during the height of the Holocaust. As a Jew, I fully understood early in life the horrors of hatred, scapegoating, discrimination, and genocide, and what catastrophic effects it had on people for generations. Also, as an avid Brooklyn Dodger fan, I always gravitated to underdogs. In 1966, I was a community organizer in an area known as the Bottoms, perhaps the worst impoverished section in Texas. I was appalled by the overt racism I saw and the harmful effects it had on the people I lived and worked with. In 1972, I moved to Denver and got a job in a nursing home where a special wing was dedicated to young adults with disabilities as young as 10 years of age. I soon learned that no one in that facility actually chose to be institutionalized, but due to a scarcity of home and community-based services, that was their only option. I had the opportunity of working with the late Reverend Wade Blank, and the two of us used our community organizing skills to make systemic changes promoting independent living opportunities for persons with disabilities, particularly those who are institutionalized. I take great pride in being the prime organizer of the first major demonstration directed toward a transportation district, that was RTD, back in 1974. This and related actions led to the implementation of the first major paratransit bus system in the United States. In 1974, I co-founded with Wade, who was the principal organizer, the Atlantis community. In 1975, with the help of the City of Denver, the Commission on the Disabled, and the Colorado Department of Social Services, Atlantis moved 15 young adults with severe disabilities out of area nursing homes into the Las Casitas apartments on 10th and Federal. This was the first program again in the United States to actively deinstitutionalize these neglected and oft-abused persons. In 1977, I worked for the then Denver Commission on the Disabled before founding Holistic Approaches to Independent Living, a center providing an array of services to adults with severe disabilities. Among the various functions of the Commission was to umbrella grassroots organizations like Atlantis and HALE. As a non-disabled person, I was terribly uncomfortable with my role as director of HALE and soon handed over the directorship to a person with a disability. Knowing that attendant care was a major need for many persons needing assistance with such activities of daily living as dressing, bathing, transferring to and from wheelchairs, bowel, bladder, and skin care, I became a service provider. Over a 30-year span, I helped facilitate service delivery to roughly 2,500 individuals, mostly children with physical and developmental disabilities. Personal Assistance Services of Colorado, or PASCO, the agency I founded and directed until 2012, presently serves close to 1,000 individuals and employs over 1,000 direct service providers. In 2013, PASCO provided approximately 1,250,000 hours of direct services to those consumers. As a CNA myself, I did most of the backup services during the early stages of PASCO and fully understood how hard the job could be. I was determined to be a good employer, additionally to become a good provider. Although my major role was to be a good provider, I did get involved with advocacy issues over the years. In 1992, my daughter Zeva was diagnosed with a terminal disease. Although devastated at first, my wife Lee Fisher and I were determined to give her a quality and comfortable life. I was also determined to support families who had children with disabilities, particularly terminal illnesses. I got involved with Family Voices of Colorado, an advocacy group supporting families of children with disabilities, and served as chairman for close to 20 years. I helped get through the legislature two major Medicaid waivers that opened up approximately 450 slots for children on a waiting list. I have been also active with the Colorado Cross Disability Coalition and ADAPT. Lastly, since this past spring, I have become involved in establishing a center for families who have children with life-limiting illnesses. The proposed center will provide respite, palliative, and end-of-life services to these children. I am chairman of this organization called Haley House. I believe every human being has the inherent right to live as independently as possible, regardless of their disability, race, religion, sex, sexual preference, or age. I have been inspired by the efforts of so many people with and without disabilities who worked long and hard for change, particularly in our community. In New Mobility, one of the major magazines geared to persons with disabilities, Denver was voted several years ago as the #1 city in the country for persons with disabilities to live in. One major thing I would like to be remembered for has been my unconditional respect for people, period. I never pitied people, nor did I lower expectations when working with consumers or employees. I guess I would like to be known as someone who loved his work, provided needed services that enhance independence, was a good and fair employer, and a responsible provider to funders. Thank you so very much for this honor.
Thank you to Mayor Hancock and the Denver GLBT Commission for the privilege of accepting this award on behalf of Matt Kailey. It is an honor to participate in the recognition of the accomplishments and contributions of the legendary Mr. Matt Kailey. I met Matt through our mutual activities of volunteering at the Gender Identity Center of Colorado back in the 90s. When I first met Matt, he was still early in his transition and just beginning his growing passion to support the transgender community. At the time, he was running the Transmasculine Support Group at the Gender Identity Center and did so for many years, as well as group facilitation workshops and supporting the board. We fast became good friends, and I'm better for having known him. He was kind and patient with me as he mentored me at the beginning of my identity as a transgender ally. We learned, grew, and laughed together throughout the years. I recognized and appreciated his many talents, but particularly enjoyed being around someone with his kindness, his dry humor, and his unwavering integrity. I celebrated with him when he self-published his first book, Tranifesto, and rejoiced when it was finally picked up by a publishing company and retitled Just Add Hormones. Although he has since written many great award-winning books, articles, and his blog Tranifesto, it is his book, Just Add Hormones, that is, and most likely always will be, my first recommendation to all my clients, friends, students, and colleagues who wish to better understand the transgender experience. It was a thrill to me when he took the advice and inspiration of one of my family members to finally quit his job and become a full-time writer. He became an award-winning professional writer, editor, and public speaker known to the LGBT community, especially the transgender community, throughout the world. He gave keynote speeches and a multitude of workshops across the U.S., was in 5 documentary films, and eventually became a college professor. I had the good fortune of having lunch with him just 2 days before he died. At that lunch, I was singing his praises, as I often did, when he adamantly yet sheepishly smiled and stated, as he always did with me, "Karen, I'm not as famous as you say I am. Mr. Kailey, I respectfully disagreed with you that day, as I always did, and am now affirmed in my belief." As word of Matt's passing spread over social media, I spent days clinging to the online outpouring of stories and gratitude of the thousands of lives he touched. I saw postings from all over the world, some in other languages. Despite Matt Kailey's many accomplishments, it is who he was that has left a legacy that teaches us how to empower, embrace, and celebrate the beautiful diversity of gender identity and expression. Like many brilliant artists and legends, he died nearly penniless because he gave it all to the transgender community. Though he was sometimes paid for his efforts, his contributions and attention to the needs of the transgender community were always given freely and usually without compensation. No matter how successful and well-known he became, he was humble and never too busy or important to answer the hundreds of messages, emails, letters, and phone calls he received, begging for his guidance and advice. There are many great transgender leaders, but Matt left a great legacy of written words that will benefit the world for years to come. However, his greatest gift was his unassuming leadership and his quiet example of how to be gracious and respectful to all who needed his help. It was his witty humor and his legendary humility that will be what I remember most. Although Matt never did any of his great work for awards or recognition, I know that he is somewhere quietly and humbly grateful for this award and pleased to know that he made a difference.
"5 years ago, when I opened my law office, fresh out of law school, only a desperate person who couldn't afford legal services would let me be their lawyer. And rightly so. I knew very little. So I just started volunteering with refugees and asylum seekers, and I vividly remember my first asylum intake. I'm sitting in this office, screening a woman from Eritrea, wondering what continent that was on. I'm listening to her story, feeling shocked by the horrific experience that she endured in prison and the harrowing tale of her escape. I was awed by the strength of her faith throughout. I knew that this was a person I needed to know. So I threw professional distance out the window, and that woman became great friends with my wife, Alicia, and I. We got through the highs and lows of her asylum case together. She introduced us to a new kind of love and to Ethiopian food. And one day, the three of us were eating together. She recounted how when she first arrived here, she didn't want money or donations. She preferred to work to support herself. What she really needed was for someone to ask her how she was doing and to mean it. And she left behind her entire family, her fiance, just so she could live. And her deepest need was for friends who cared how she was doing. This friend and many others like her altered my vision as a lawyer and a human. I didn't see my refugee and asylum clients as a legal file or some way to gain experience. They were people with dreams and goals, with powerful talents, wisdom and character, with a desire for relationship. They wanted someone to care how they were doing, just like you and me, right? And it's been the great experience of my life to journey with them. My friend from Bhutan, he fills me with passion, recounting stories of his service to Kathmandu's orphans. My friends from Burma show me how to garden in community. My brothers from Congo school me every time on the soccer field. My sister from Mali revealed to me the beauty to be found in other faiths. I have this friend from Rwanda. She displays for me daily that you can have joy in all circumstances. And an amazing bachelor from Darfur blessed me with brotherhood and the strength to face any challenge. There are other examples, but the point is that we can't solve each other's problems all the time as we want to, but we care enough to ask each other how we're doing, and we're there, present to celebrate new babies and achievements and to cry together over divorce or death. Whether I was their lawyer or just a neighbor in their city, we have become friends and even family. And over time, their journey became our journey, and their community became our community. And I think it's only when that shift has taken place that we as a city, as a country, really as a human race can begin to understand our needs and how we can address them together. So thank you, Mayor Hancock, the City of Denver, and the Immigrant and Refugee Commission for recognizing how I've tried to live my life. This award belongs to these inspiring friends. I hope this type of friendship will be my legacy and the legacy of my city, that we befriended others, standing for each other, not just ourselves. Because in that environment, people of all types will finally have the ability to shine like they were born to, and our city will become all that it can be. Thank you very much for this honor. Now go befriend a refugee. I promise your life will never be the same.
When I started with NewSed, I knew I was a good fit for the job because there was a need to make changes in the neighborhood that I was born and raised in, and I was up for the challenge. I worked tirelessly to implement strategies to make life better for neighborhood residents by bringing housing development, community-based economic development, community organizing, and arts and culture to the West Side, Lama Lincoln Park neighborhood. NewSed's arts and culture programming includes the 27th Annual Cinco de Mayo in Civic Center Park, the 23rd Annual Civil Rights Awards, and the Un Toque de Mexico concert. I have served as the president and CEO of NewSed Community Development Corporation since 1978. NewSed CDC is a nonprofit, community-based organization whose main focus is the revitalization of Denver's Near West Side community. NewSed has served the Denver Latino community for 40 years. The history of the Community Development Corporation movement is very important to note here because this movement, started by Robert and Ethel Kennedy, has created social and economic stability in many neighborhoods that were considered beyond repair throughout this great country of ours. I have many passions in my life, my family and work being the main ones. I have a great passion for animals and would like to spend more time working with them. My passion does not end with my family and work. My passion also includes my culture, equality, and justice, as I have championed civil rights all of my life. I have great admiration for organizations that have shown leadership and have been change agents in the civil rights movement, fair housing, and protecting individual freedoms, such as the NAACP, the Center for Community Change, the National Council of La Raza, Gill Foundation, the Anti-Defamation League, the Southern Poverty Law Center, and the American Civil Liberties Union. President Kennedy said, if a free society cannot help the many who are poor, it cannot save the few who are rich. I bring a lifetime of excitement and learning experiences that I share with the younger generation, my daughters and my grandsons. I share with them that around the corner is the next new experience, and to enjoy each moment and look forward to the next, because it can be full of surprises. I would hope my legacy is justice in doing the right action, because this is what fiercely energizes me.
I am so pleased and honored to accept this important award on behalf of the Denver Foundation's Inclusiveness Project. To be recognized by our esteemed peers and mentors in the Denver Office of Strategic Partnerships is especially humbling. Thank you. With the tireless commitment of visionary leaders like Lauren Castile and Maria Guajardo, the Inclusiveness Project is now a national model for how foundations and nonprofits can advance racial equity and inspire leaders. We provide grants to leadership programs for people of color and community organizing groups, support and amplify philanthropy in communities of color. We increase resident and civic leadership and create opportunities for people to come together to discuss important and sometimes challenging community issues. I'm inspired daily by the thousands of nonprofit staff and volunteers, Denver City employees, and community leaders committed to making Denver a place of diversity, inclusion, and equity. Everyone here tonight is working to ensure that our young men of Denver are lifted up toward good jobs with benefits rather than pulled down into the criminal justice system. Working to ensure our young women of Denver have access to trusted resources that support family planning alongside career planning. Together, we are all part of a larger movement that not only embraces diversity, but also calls out and works to eliminate discrimination in order to advance the human potential of all Denver residents. Rather than look forward toward my legacy, and in honor of the great Dr. Vincent Harding, I look back toward my elders with gratitude. I think of my mama's mama, a Cajun woman from Louisiana who still inspires me, mostly through Facebook, to commit to my own advancement of my career in order to then make positive community change. I think of my daddy's mama, a Chicana, who defined minority-owned small business long before the Nixon administration ever coined the phrase. My grandma often reminds me that no matter how tired I am at the end of the day, packing lunches for my husband and my sons is the ultimate gesture of love. Thank you, Mayor Hancock, for honoring all of our grandmothers and their legacies with this important award. It is an indescribable privilege to be part of this evening. Thank you.
On behalf of Project Safeguard, I'm pleased and proud to receive this award. We are very grateful to the Denver Women's Commission for this recognition of our work serving victims of domestic violence. Project Safeguard was begun 30 years ago in a very different era, a time when domestic violence was mostly ignored by police, by the court system, and pretty much by society as a whole. Project Safeguard was founded to ensure that the police, the court system, and our community took this matter seriously. 30 years later, we've made great strides toward that goal. There is much greater visibility for the issue and much better institutional response to domestic violence in Denver. But as long as there is still domestic violence, our work is not done. Every day, Project Safeguard advocates work to ensure that every victim of domestic violence is taken seriously and treated respectfully by law enforcement and prosecution, and that each receives justice from the courts. Our advocates are located inside the Denver County Courthouse, as well as in Adams, Arapahoe, and Broomfield County courthouses, to assist and support victims in making effective use of those important protections that are available to them through the court systems. And it's of primary importance to everyone at Project Safeguard that these life-saving services are accessible to all victims of domestic violence in our community. We have both Spanish-speaking and English-speaking staff in each office, and we have both Spanish-speaking and English-speaking volunteer attorneys who provide direct assistance to low-income victims of domestic violence who wish to file for divorce or child custody. We partner closely with other community-based organizations who serve deaf or hard of hearing individuals, those with physical or cognitive disabilities, and those who speak languages other than English or Spanish. And Project Safeguard is not through making changes in our community. The next innovation in our work in Denver will begin with the opening of the Rose Andom Center in a few months. The Rose Andom Center will be just a couple of blocks from the Denver County Courthouse and will house staff from numerous nonprofit organizations as well as law enforcement and prosecution, so that together we will be able to provide in one safe, easy-to-access location a wide range of services that many victims of domestic violence need. We are deeply grateful to Rose Andom, a successful and generous Denver business owner, and to Mayor Hancock for being such great champions of this grassroots collaboration. Together, we will assist Denver's victims of domestic violence to get safe, stay safe, and build successful new lives for themselves and their families.